My husband called me his maid and shouted at me for not picking up his call quickly, even though I was looking after his mother. I never imagined my life would spiral into this bizarre, heartbreaking mess. It all started with wedding vows and dreams of a quiet, comfortable life, but those dreams quickly shattered, leaving me a shell of my former self, desperately searching for a lifeline. My husband called me his maid and shouted at me for not picking up his call quickly, even though I was looking after his mother. She heard him being mean and said, "How many times have I endured such cutting remarks? My abilities, my worth, everything was scorned." My name is Mary Wagner, and I'm 30 years old. After graduating from university, I landed a job at a publishing company, a career I loved, but I kissed it goodbye, embracing the role of a full-time housewife. My friends often envied me, assuming I led a charmed life. "How fortunate you are to be a homemaker," they'd say. "Your husband must be quite successful." But the truth, the reality was a descent into the depths of despair, and the root cause of my unhappiness was my husband, Jack. Jack, 3 years my senior, possessed a reserved demeanor. We weren't exactly the epitome of affectionate partners. Nonetheless, I was drawn to his steadfast sense of self and mature demeanor. I envisioned a tranquil, content life together. That was my hope, at least. The reality hit me like a brick mere days into our marriage. I embraced the role of a full-time homemaker, throwing myself into domestic duties from the onset of our union. On one particular evening, I diligently prepared dinner, eagerly awaiting Jack's return. "What's this?" he barked, scrutinizing the meal. "It's a casserole with salad and a side of soup," I responded hesitantly. "Don't toy with me," he roared. "If you're catering to your weary husband, it ought to be a lavish spread. Your past successes are no excuse. How can you falter at such basic tasks? You are utterly incompetent as a woman." "You could have said that differently," I murmured, my troubled expression met with Jack's icy glare. Suddenly, he hurled the dish of salad to the floor, splattering lettuce and dressing across the pristine kitchen. "It's because you, as my wife, can't even manage the basics," Jack interjected sharply. I made my expectations clear. "There's no need to disrespect the food like that. Shut up. How about you better fulfill your role as my wife, you fool." Fool. It was the first time I'd been called that. Sure, I'd faced reprimands from my parents, arguments with my brother and friends, but never had I been subjected to such raw cruelty. It had only been a few days since our wedding. I never imagined he would react so harshly over a dinner choice. From that moment, I walked on eggshells, terrified to defy my husband. Since that incident, I've been tiptoeing around him, careful not to trigger his anger. I meticulously ironed every piece of laundry, prepared the simplest of meals like loaded potato soup. Under this constant pressure, my nerves frayed. Yet his patriarchal control only tightened. "There's a crease in the shirt sleeve, can't you see?" he'd snarl. "I am sorry," I'd whimper. "I'm already running late for work." "You're always so slow, I'll assure you won't have time." "You're insufferable in the morning." "How much more do you want to upset me, you incompetent woman?" he'd snap. "I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I apologize," my voice trembling. Depending on the gravity of my mistake, the depth of my contrition varied. Sometimes, kneeling was required. And in moments of repeated mistakes, divorce documents would appear. It's astonishing how quickly one can become accustomed to such treatment. After a year of enduring the cycle, I began to internalize a sense of utter worthlessness. I couldn't bear the thought of divorce, especially in my current state of unemployment. The prospect of enduring perpetual reprimands from my husband filled me with despair for the future. As usual, I was in the midst of preparing dinner, anticipating his return. My daily ritual involved completing the meal by 7 o'clock p.m. The moment the front door creaked open, if I failed to finish before he sat down, it would inevitably lead to another round of apologies. Typically, my husband would take a seat in silence, but on this particular day, something felt different. He initiated a conversation. "Mary, we're moving to my parents' house this weekend." I paused, puzzled. "Your parents' house? You mean your mother's place?" "Yes, that's correct. Have everything packed by then." I couldn't help but inquire why the sudden change. "You've always been adamant about not returning to your parents' house." He spoke, his voice laced with a chilling indifference. "My mother had a fall, and living independently has become too challenging for her." My concern surged. "We should go to her immediately. She's been in the hospital for a week. We'll move once she's discharged this weekend." "I understand now," I replied quietly. "But why the sudden change? You've always resisted returning to your parents' home." He paused, as if weighing his next words, then finally, "Can you guess why?" Unable to contain his eagerness, he confessed. "I can't deny the idea of potential inheritance," he confessed, a glint of pure avarice in his eyes. Satisfaction filled his voice. "My father was an ordinary man, but my mother's family is wealthy. She has a substantial amount of money." "What does that have to do with her current situation?" I dared to question. His lips curled into a calculating smile. If I play the devoted son during this ordeal, perhaps I'll be in line for a significant inheritance. If we, as a couple, are there, I'm confident she'd be inclined to bestow the entire inheritance upon us. Isn't that a bit disrespectful? I dared to question. Shut up, you're being supported by me, so just listen quietly. He retorted sharply. I am sorry, I stammered, cowed by his outburst. The air was thick with tension as his words echoed in the room, leaving me feeling small and powerless. Instinctively, I offered my usual apology. With a triumphant air, he declared, listen, from now on, you'll be taking care of my mother. You'll work as a maid in my parents' house for the rest of your life. Is that what you mean? I ventured to ask, but he cut me off sharply. Don't argue. Who do you think is providing for your current lifestyle? It's all thanks to me, isn't it? Depending on how well you care for my mother, our inheritance could be affected, so don't neglect your duties, understand? Under pressure to respond, I mumbled yes. His satisfaction was evident, forcing me into the role of caregiver solely for the sake of his mother's inheritance. My husband doesn't regard me as his wife. To him, I'm merely a housekeeper. Though I was aware of this truth, a part of me had refused to believe it. The following day, following my husband's orders, I started packing our belongings. A week later, as directed by him, we relocated to my mother-in-law's residence, coinciding with her discharge from the hospital. On the day of her discharge, Jack didn't show up at the hospital, citing work obligations. Consequently, I was the one accompanying my mother-in-law home. During our journey back, she turned to me, her voice heavy with regret. Mary, I'm truly sorry. It's because of me that you're going through all of this. Don't worry about it, I lied. As a housewife, if I can lend you support while being at home, then nothing could be more important. Thank you. But are you not bothered by how sudden this all is? Well, the packing was a bit rushed, I admit. I can imagine. Even I was taken aback by Jack's decision to move in with us. I wonder what prompted him to do this so abruptly. Mary, have you heard anything? No, I haven't heard anything, I replied, my voice betraying none of the turmoil within. It wasn't surprising that my mother-in-law found the situation bewildering. He had often expressed his grievances with remarks like, she's a nuisance, and I'd rather not be around her. Yet, he swiftly moved in with her upon her hospitalization, driven by the prospect of her inheritance. To be honest, I was startled by Jack's sudden change in behavior. However, I couldn't bring myself to disclose the truth to my mother-in-law. Striving to maintain composure, I concealed my inner turmoil. Thus began my life as a caregiver, navigating the unfamiliar responsibilities alongside the household chores in the spacious family home. Jack's domineering demeanor remained unchanged. In my mother-in-law's absence, there was no respite from the demands of housekeeping and caregiving. This routine persisted for about a month, until one day while I was attending to my mother-in-law's needs, she observed me closely. Mary, have you lost weight again? No, please don't worry about it, mother, I reassured her, attempting a smile. Are you certain? I noticed the same thing when you first moved in. You seemed much more fatigued compared to when you were newlywed. She was right. Over the course of our year and a half of marriage, I had visibly withered. It wasn't due to skipping meals, but to the constant stress and anxiety gnawing at me from the inside out. My mother-in-law discerned the changes in me. Simply that acknowledgement is some of my loneliness. Wanting to alleviate her concerns, I mustered a smile. Don't fret over me, mother. Just sharing these conversations with you each day brings me joy. Shall I attend to your other hand, mother? I suggested, attempting to lighten the mood. Oh yes, please. Just as I began to assist her, my phone abruptly rang. It seems to be Jack, my mother-in-law observed, causing my body to stiffen. Jack insisted I answer his calls promptly. However, with a wet towel in hand, utilizing my elbow, I managed to tap the answer button and switch the call to the speaker. Hello. Before I could even greet him, a barrage of angry shouts erupted from the other end of the line. Hey, don't play games. Why didn't you answer immediately? Hi, I'm sorry. I was occupied and couldn't, I explained, my voice barely a whisper. Didn't I always tell you not to talk back? You're so frustrating. Why are you so incapable? Jack's voice seethed with anger. Hi, I'm sorry, I apologize weakly. Are you ensuring the old lady is properly cared for? The inheritance hinges on your performance. Do you understand? Being humiliated in front of my mother-in-law filled me with shame. Jack continued to hurl insults, oblivious to the damage he was inflicting. Following Jack's tirade, a weighty silence engulfed the room. It was my mother-in-law who broke it, her voice trembling with anger. Mary, was that Jack? Does he always speak to you like that? Yes, but it's my fault. I am incompetent, I responded defeated. What nonsense is that? You're such a kind and wonderful girl, Mary, she reassured me with sincerity. Mom, I can't ignore this. It's time to take a stand. My mother-in-law then proposed a plan. A spark of defiance ignited within her eyes. Following her lead, I gathered all of Jack's belongings and deposited them in the yard before locking the front door. Together, we awaited Jack's return, a sense of nervous anticipation filling the air. Several hours passed before we heard noises from the entrance. It was likely Jack. Ignoring the intercom's persistent chimes, I followed my mother-in-law's instructions, bracing myself for the inevitable confrontation. Eventually, my phone began to ring. It was Jack. He began shouting immediately. "Hey, stop playing games. Open the front door this instant." "I can't do that." "What? What do you mean? This is your mother's directive." Unable to grasp the situation, he continued to shout, "Stop messing around and open it now." In response, my mother-in-law's voice rang out, cold and resolute. "The one who's messing around here is you, you fool." "Mom, I always knew you were distant, but I never imagined you would treat your wife like this." "No, that's not. I sensed something was amiss when you suddenly moved in to exploit your wife and rely on inheritance. How could you lead such a disgraceful existence?" My mother-in-law admonished him with righteous fury. "No, that's not true," Jack protested. "What's not true? I have no intention of leaving you any inherit. If you understand, get lost. This is my house, you will never be allowed back in." Flustered by my mother-in-law's accusations, Jack began pounding on the door, desperation creeping into his voice. Through the phone, I could hear him pleading, "Please do something," but the scales had finally fallen from my eyes. I had an ally in my mother-in-law. I wouldn't be manipulated any longer. I declared with resolution, addressing Jack firmly over the phone, "I want a divorce. I can't continue with you any longer." "What are you saying?" he exclaimed in disbelief. "Enough. I refuse to remain married to a man like you any longer. I refuse to squander my life. I refuse to sacrifice my own happiness for yours," I declared resolutely. "Don't be ridiculous. You can't live without me," he countered, his voice laced with arrogance. "There's nothing I can't handle. No matter how difficult it may be, it's preferable to being with you. I will conquer any obstacle. I no longer require your presence in my life. I refuse to tolerate garbage like you," I retorted firmly. His shouts could be heard from outside, echoing his rage and disbelief. My mother-in-law reported his disturbance to the authorities. Due to his disruptive behavior, he was escorted away by the police, his pathetic pleas fading into the distance. Using the divorce papers he had previously provided, I initiated formal proceedings to end our marriage. Additionally, I pursued legal action against him for the mental and physical anguish he had caused me. With my mother-in-law's support as a witness, the legal proceedings progressed smoothly. Furthermore, his employment was terminated by his company upon discovering his police record, relegating him to a lower position, his reputation tarnished beyond repair. Naturally, my mother-in-law declined to leave her inheritance to Jack. After consulting with a lawyer and honoring my mother-in-law's wish to entrust everything to me, it was agreed that she would transfer approximately. I continue to provide care for my mother-in-law in her home. It's the least I can do for her now. Mary, I'm deeply sorry for always burdening you. Even after divorcing Jack, you're still here caring for me. Why do you say that? Mom, I should be the one thanking you. Truly, I feel blessed to have a daughter like you. The feeling is mutual. Let's continue to support each other, all right? My life alongside my mother-in-law is now filled with more joy than I could have ever imagined. I'll strive to do everything within my power for her until the end of her days. So, Reddit, tell me honestly, did I handle this situation correctly? Considering everything you've read, from the constant abuse to the inheritance scheme, what are your thoughts? I'm genuinely curious to hear your opinions and perspectives on how I navigated this incredibly difficult chapter of my life.